Hey, thanks for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. On today's episode, we discuss Storm collectibles. Hey, Storm, we need to talk. So, some years ago, I had created a few Storm collectible videos just talking about the overall company. And I've been meaning to keep those videos going, but since I've been vacant from YouTube, those videos just kept getting delayed and delayed. And now I sit here with what I feel like is almost too much information to cover when it comes to Storm collectibles, at least in one video. And if I'm stretching out videos, that's not a good thing because I don't know when I'm going to make the next one. With that being said, I feel like I still need to get some things off of my chest. So where's a good place to start with Storm collectibles? I guess we'll start close to what I consider the beginning. So when it comes to Storm collectibles and their 1/12 scale figures, if memory serves correctly, two of the franchises that they started with were Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. And I think what a well-timed and placed decision to go after two of the most popular games in the 90s. In addition to it being some of the most popular games, I also thought it was a wise decision because the first Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2 did not have a huge selection of characters. So I thought that, okay, this is great. This company would be able to give us all of these figures in a relatively short time. 10 years later, and here we are. I have to say, though, it started out good. We had a few of the main characters to the franchise, which almost all companies do. And then we had some either deeper cuts or characters to where we don't see a lot of them being made. And what us collectors received on the action figure side was extraordinary or very good toys. I thought they were so well made, well sculpted, painted. Articulation was great, except for the ankles. And even today, sometimes, except for the ankles. Are you telling me that I forgot that Storm Collectibles started with Street Fighter V? It makes so much sense now. I was like, why did they make Alex? This is why they made Alex. They started with part 5, not part 2. And part 5 had, 40 plus characters? But I didn't record it the whole video. I didn't realize they started Street Fighter V until I looked at this. What am I supposed to do with the whole video? Yeah, we're going to have to improvise. But just know I know, even though if the dialogue and content suggests that I don't know, at the time I didn't know, but now I do know. And the pricing was fair at that time. So for a collector, there wasn't a lot to complain about, in my opinion, in the early days of Storm Collectible, branching into their 1/12 scale line. And then something started to happen. I kind of want to say this is when disaster struck, but I'll save that for later and say things started to happen. For Mortal Kombat specifically, we started to see repaint of figures. Well, that's not accurate. We would see color variations of characters, but they were their own unique characters. For example, Sub-Zero and Scorpion, relatively the same. Then we started to receive Ermac and Rain and Reptile, all unique characters, but all characters that use the same mold, pretty much same design, but there was some variation in color. And this is not particularly a bad thing, especially for a company just starting out in this scale of action figures. Then Storm started to jump around within the individual license. And here's what I mean by that. Instead of sticking to Street Fighter 2 and focusing on that roster and Mortal Kombat 1 and focusing on that roster, they would jump to Street Fighter 5. They would jump to Mortal Kombat 3. And then we would ultimately receive different versions of the same characters. And yes, we also receive newer characters as well. And each time they did this, it sort of pushed us further away just from completing one particular game. Does that make sense? And then in addition to that, their scale changed. I can't call it out across the entire line, but it started with Mortal Kombat. If you have the original ninjas that they released for Mortal Kombat, if you look at the size of them compared to the size of the same figures in Mortal Kombat 3, they absolutely got larger in scale. Then they started to receive new licensing. And I'm saying then as if all of these things happen in this specific order. These things may not have happened in this specific order. I'm just allowing my memory to flow and listening some of the transitions that happened within the company. And we had wrestling figures, which were all early on. I remember there Hulk Hogan. We had boxing figures early on. I remember there Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a really good figure. The Hulk Hogan I didn't buy, so I'm unable to tell you how good it was. And then slowly they kept adding licensing. At some point we had DC, and DC was specifically focused on the video game, which I know a lot of collectors would have loved to have some classic DC characters, but I thought this made so much sense. The company is focusing on fighting brands. Why not go with one of the bigger properties and focus on their fighting game? So what we received were DC Injustice figures. And I think those figures were pretty great. We had a Doomsday, Darkseid, God of War, I believe Ares. I think we had some other big figure. Was it No, we didn't receive a Brainiac. Lobo. And we saw some designs for other figures. We'll talk about that later. And then I remember World Heroes coming in. I remember Gears of War coming in. I remember King of Fighters coming in. Golden Axe came in. Darkstalkers came in. Oh, I was so excited for Darkstalkers. X-Slayers came in. Forgot about that. Samurai Showdown came in. Also forgot about that one. Tekken came in. What a good franchise. Soul Calibur, Gotcha Man or Eagle Force, Fist of the North Star. What even happened with that? And there are some newer ones that I am intentionally leaving out. And I'm pretty sure there are some older ones that I can't quite remember. So all of this seemed like good news. I get to mix all of the fighting games that I loved, take all of those characters and get them to fight each other. Terry Bogard against Ken, Ryu against The main character from Virtual Fighter. Oh yeah, we have Virtual Fighter. Akuma against Devil Jin. All of this was possible. What could go wrong? Oh boy, did it ever go wrong. So what exactly went wrong? It's not like I have the inside to Storm Collectibles, but I'm going to say, let's start with production. Storm Collectibles is a small toy manufacturer. And when I say a small toy manufacturer, comparing them to the likes of Hasbro, which at some point was pushing out 160 Marvel Legend figures per year. Mattel, which was pushing out over 100 wrestling figures per year. And this is one line within those companies. We're not talking there are other brands that they have within those companies. But little old Storm Collectibles, the little engine that could, was pushing out, 6 to 10 figures per year? And 10, I feel, is an exaggeration, particularly in the early years, unless you're counting the slight color variation, smoke and rain. Other than that, I feel like we were getting roughly 6 figures per year. So what could be the problem with getting 6 figures per year? Well, when you have 15 licenses and you're only getting 6 to 10 figures a year, and you're thinking about games that have rosters of 8 to maybe 12 characters, yeah, you do the math. It's going to take us a very long time to get to the end of this. And boy, oh boy, did we get to the end of this. There were too many licenses. I feel like I'm saying that word weird. And not enough toys being made. And if that wasn't bad enough, let's move on to the next big thing. It was the decision making. They weren't pushing out enough product. And in addition to them not pushing enough product, we were receiving variants of the same character. We received Bison from Street Fighter 2. Then we received another Bison, which I think was from Street Fighter 5. We received at least 2 versions of Reptile. We received at least 3 versions of Scorpion, at least 3 versions of Sub-Zero, and I'm pretty sure for those 2 particular characters, the numbers were higher. We received at least 4 different versions of Ryo, and I'm pretty sure that number was higher. We received at least 2 different versions of Ken. If you're counting Violent Ken, then it's 3, and I wasn't happy with any of those figures. We received 2 versions of Shao Kahn. We received 2 versions of Goro, but did not receive a single Shang Tsung. I feel like I need to repeat that. Not a single Shang Tsung. Not a single Sonya Blade. Not a single Johnny Cage. These are the core characters of the first Mortal Kombat game, and we didn't receive a single version of those characters. However, we received version 2 of other characters. We received a Shang Lo, a Shiva, Montaro, if that's his name. Then the tiger dude with the 4 arms. We received those characters, which are all great characters. But before the core selection of characters from Mortal Kombat 1, who's making decisions at this company? We received Alex from Street Fighter, T-Hawk from Street Fighter, the girl with the big feet from Street Fighter, Cammy from Street Fighter, 3 versions of Chun-Li from Street Fighter, before we receive a Dazlum and Vega. So at the time I'm doing this this video, they reveal prototypes of Vega. Finally. And I'll tell you, for the last few years, I've been trolling Storm Collectibles with what's going on with Dazlum and Vega. We're so close to finishing Street Fighter 2. Why don't you just focus on those characters? And this has been the frustration with Storm Collectibles, not focusing on the franchises that they're started. Get Street Fighter 2 over with. Be able to say, hey, fans, collectors, we finally got one complete roster. Street Fighter is done. Mortal Kombat is done. Wouldn't you want this? Wouldn't you want to be able to say this as a company? I would think so. It's actually Jada's focus. They're focusing on one Street Fighter game, figure after figure. It is a very slow rollout, but no slower than how Storm Collectibles was rolling out figures. The difference, Jada doesn't have 15 licenses that they're focusing on for their action figure line. They started with one. They focused on that one. They slowly added others. And I think right now with Jada, maybe they're at 5 or 6. Maybe a little bit more if you're counting the mascots. But with the mascots, you know you're going to get 1 or 2 mascots each year. This is a good direction by Jada Toys. So you figure within 3 years, all of the Street Fighter characters, it's over, it's done with. And when that's done, then they can add more licensing and focus on that. I think that's a pretty good way of doing things. And now moving on to the next thing, loss of licensing. This is a dagger in the heart. This is like walking through a cemetery because the realization sets that the collection that you thought you were going to have, it's over. It is dead. Now, if it's one license that I thought Storm Collectibles would not lose, it would be Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. But Mortal Kombat is gone. And Mortal Kombat is gone, and we don't have a Sonya Blade, Luke Cage, Shang Tsung, a proper Kano. And maybe that's where I should have went to. I should have talked about figures that aren't. So we'll spin back to that. And you know what makes this so much worse is that we received prototypes for some of these figures. There was a prototype for Johnny Cage. Figure never released. There were prototypes, or rather I should say completed figures for Milena Jade. At least 2 or 3 of the female ninjas in Mortal Kombat. Those figures were done. Finished. Accessories and all. And before we got them, the line was killed off. Like, why couldn't you make that happen? At least give us them. But the line was killed off. We also saw a prototype. I don't remember if it was of Shang Tsung or if it was of his throne room. I think it was his throne room, but we never got it. So this is why I'm so animate about Street Fighter 2. Where is Dazlum? We need to see a prototype of Dazlum this year, 2026. We need to see it so that we know that it's coming. It is in production. We may have it in the next 6 months. But you know what we also saw? We saw prototypes of their DC Injustice. I went to Comic-Con that year. I saw a fully painted Batman. I saw a fully painted Superman. What happened to them? I saw Lobo Space Hog. It was beautiful. What happened to it? Was this right around the time when McFarlane came in? But I can't see why that would have stopped Storm Collectible. The scale was about the same, but the pricing was so much different. So we see that nowadays to where some figures come in the same scale, but the pricing is vastly different. What happened? Did time just run out? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that they had 3 to 5 years to produce figures. And within those 3 to 5 years, they didn't have a lot to show. Gears of War. Oh, I was so hyped for this. And they were just taking their time with Gears of War. No rush, no urgency. And then we see all of these great prototypes. I think there was Bird. What is the other dude? His name is not Carlos, is it? This guy. And then we started to receive, I think, a few orcs that they showed that we didn't get. And we were able to pre-order these figures. And then those pre-orders was canceled. Another line that they lost. Another line that they did not have a lot to show for. Oh, and their boxing went away too. We got, I think, 2 versions of Mike Tyson. At least one. We got Muhammad Ali, which to this day I bite myself for not getting. And I thought those 2 figures were great. I really wish they would have continued with the boxing, and I was fine if they were only releasing 1 character per year. But that went away. The wrestling went away, both the American and the Japanese side. What the hell is going on with World Heroes? We received 2 characters, basically 90% of the same mold, pretty much similar accessories. And we haven't seen another World Hero character in 7 years. And we also saw another prototype for World Heroes. I think it was of this character. Is this license gone? More accurately, yes, they still have the license. But will they continue to make other World Hero figures? Soul Calibur, we received 2 figures. We haven't seen any more figures in the last 5 years. Is that line gone? X-Layer, we saw Skullomania. It felt like it took 7 years for that figure to come out. That figure was released in 2025, 2026. Don't remember which of the 2. Are we getting any more characters for X-Layer? Tekken, I think we saw Paul in 2025. That franchise have seen to stop. No new prototypes, no new anything. Is Tekken dead? Virtual Fighter 5, we got 2 or 3 characters. Nothing in the last 2 years. Is that dead? Golden Axe. Oh, that was another one. And they were pushing out characters for Golden Axe. I gotta give them that. Golden Axe they did very well with. Curious, is there any more coming? Darkstalkers. We received Demetrius and Morrigan with the worst diaper. I don't know what the hell that was. But is it done? Because I'm seeing newer figures for your arena scale. And don't worry, we will talk about that. Fist of the North Star. What's going on with that? Is that line dead? I don't think we received any figures in 1/12 scale. I think you did a 1/6 scale figure. What's going on with that? Samurai Showdown. We received Earthquake the tail end of 2024, I think. So if that's correct, we haven't received anything in 2 years. No new promotion, solicitation. Is Samurai Showdown gone without a Hanzo or a Galford? Are you kidding me? Those are the characters I wanted the most. What other franchise do you have that deserves another rest in peace? Gotcha Man. There are only 5 characters, or is it 6? Heroes anyway. What is taking so long? You did the main character. The girl came next. I think I saw a prototype for a third figure. Just finish that. Get them out of the way. Say for 2026, our last two figures of the year are going to be these two characters so that we can close this out. Or three characters. I don't remember how many characters is for that. I didn't watch that series. Oh, Storm, the decision making. I feel like whoever is in charge at Storm Collectibles has to be a fan of each of these franchises. And this particular fan, who's also the person making decisions at Storm Collectibles, is just focused on completing the collection that they want. Right? They're like, yeah, I never played with that character, so hell with that character. I want to make sure I make this character so I can have that character. Because that's the only thing that makes sense. You look at any other toy manufacturer and you look at the decisions that it makes when it comes to certain characters, and Storm Collectibles just created a script of their own. And no rhyme or reason. It just goes left, right, up, down, circle, square, triangle, octagon. I just don't understand the decision making of this company. And with that being said, I'm going to close out this video. I hope to see you for part 2, and hopefully it doesn't take me years to make part 2. Really want to know what's your thoughts on Storm Collectibles. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about Storm Arena. There's a lot of stuff to include. I did not want this to be an hour video because I have to edit this. And if it's going to take me an hour to edit this, no clue when this video will ever be finished, but I'm going to work on it today. So thanks for tuning in to Mr. Cliff's Toy Shop. I hope to see you during the next episode.